Why high-value men seek this specific emotional depth after physical intimacy. You know what nobody talks about. The moment after. Not during, not leading up to it. The moment right after physical intimacy. When the room goes quiet and two people are just there. And what a man does in that moment, what he needs in that moment, tells you everything about where he is emotionally and what kind of relationship he's actually capable of building with you. I want to talk about something today that I think gets misunderstood constantly, especially in the conversation around men and emotional availability. Because there's this idea floating around that men, particularly successful, confident, self-aware men, are somehow emotionally closed off by default, that they want physical connection and nothing deeper. And I'm here to tell you that's not only wrong, it's almost the opposite of what's true for men who have genuinely done the work on themselves. So let's get into it. Why do high-value men, and when I say high value, I don't mean rich, I mean emotionally grounded, self-aware, purpose-driven, why do they specifically seek a certain kind of emotional depth after physical intimacy? And why does this matter so much to the dynamic of a relationship? First, let's understand something about vulnerability and what it actually costs a man to let someone in physically. I think women sometimes underestimate how much trust is embedded in that act for a man who is emotionally intelligent. Because for a man who has built something, a life, a mindset, a standard for himself, letting someone into that space is a big deal. It's not just physical. His nervous system is open. His guard is down. And in that moment, more than almost any other moment in a relationship, he is paying close attention to how safe you make him feel. This is where a lot of women get confused. They think vulnerability only flows one direction. But a man who is truly high value is not going to repeatedly open himself physically to a woman who makes him feel emotionally unsafe or misunderstood afterward. He might not articulate it that way, he might not even consciously recognize it at first. But over time, he will pull back. He will create distance, and he won't always be able to explain why, because this is happening at a level beneath the words he has access to. What he's looking for in those quiet moments after intimacy is something I describe as emotional landing. A place to come down, a feeling that the person next to him sees him, not the version of him that performs and produces and leads and holds things together, but the version of him that is just human, a little exposed, a little uncertain about whether he's loved for who he is versus what he provides. And here's something I want you to sit with for a second. High-value men are often incredibly competent in the world. They solve problems. They make decisions. They carry weight without complaining. And that competence, as attractive as it is, can become a kind of prison when it bleeds into every single relationship dynamic. Because when a man is always the strong one, always the one with answers, always the one managing and leading, the moments when he can just be without performing anything become incredibly precious to him. Physical intimacy creates one of those rare openings, and what he's hoping for on the other side of it is a woman who doesn't immediately rush to fill the silence, who doesn't make it about logistics or plans or what happened earlier that day, but who instead creates a pocket of warmth and presence where he can just exist without expectations. This isn't complicated, but it is specific. It's not about grand gestures. It's about small, quiet attunement. It's the difference between a woman who immediately checks her phone and a woman who stays present. It's the difference between a woman who brings up something stressful and a woman who just rests her hand on his chest and doesn't need anything from him in that moment. These things sound small. They are not small. To a man who has experienced both, the difference is enormous. Now I want to get into why this is specifically about emotional depth and not just comfort or affection. Because there's a distinction worth drawing here. Any woman can be warm after intimacy. That's table stakes. What high-value men are actually seeking is something that requires more from a woman emotionally. And it's the thing that separates a connection that goes somewhere from one that eventually flatlines. Emotional depth in this context means that a woman has access to her own inner life. She's not performing sweetness. She actually has it. She's not strategically being soft. She genuinely is soft in that moment. Because she's also open, also present, also willing to be seen. There's a kind of reciprocal vulnerability that happens in the best post-intimacy moments between two emotionally mature people. He's not guarded, and she's not performing. And in that space, something real gets transmitted between them that doesn't happen in the middle of a busy day or across a dinner table with phones on the table. Men who have experienced this, even once, will chase it. They will structure their entire romantic life around finding a woman who can do this consistently. Because it's rare. Most people are somewhat defended most of the time. And that's not a criticism. It's just true. We protect ourselves. We manage how we're perceived. But in those moments after intimacy, the defenses are supposed to be down. And a man who has done his own emotional work will feel the difference immediately between a woman who let her defenses down too, and a woman who is still, even in that moment, slightly performing or slightly checked out. Let me tell you what this looks like in practice, because I don't want this to stay abstract. A man has had a hard week. He's been carrying something. A pressure at work, a worry about someone in his family, a question about whether he's on the right path. He doesn't broadcast this because that's not how he operates. But after intimacy, when the room is quiet and he's lying there, something in him wants to say the actual thing, the real thing. And the question, the unconscious question he's asking in that moment, is whether she's a safe place to do that. If she's distracted, if she's emotionally unavailable, if she turns the conversation toward herself too quickly, or if she responds to his quiet vulnerability with anxiety or advice or a need to fix something. He learns something about her. He learns she's not that place. And again, he won't necessarily say this out loud. He'll just notice it, file it away, adjust accordingly. But if she holds the space, if she says something simple, something that shows she's listening not just to his words, but to what's underneath them, he will feel it. And that feeling is honestly one of the most bonding experiences available in a relationship. Because it proves something to him. It proves she's not just here for the easy parts. And that proof, accumulated over time across dozens of these small, quiet moments, is what builds the kind of attachment that doesn't break easily. I think it's worth addressing why some women struggle with this. Because I don't think it's a character flaw. I think it's often a pattern that comes from their own emotional history. Some women are so used to relationships where they had to be emotionally self-sufficient, or where expressing need felt dangerous, that they developed a habit of filling silence rather than sitting in it, of redirecting rather than receiving, of deflecting from intimacy with busyness or irony or practicality. And a lot of the time, these women don't even realize they're doing it. They think they're being low maintenance. They think they're being easygoing. But what they're actually doing is keeping both people at a slight emotional distance. And the man who is paying attention, who is capable of paying attention, will eventually feel the glass between them even if he can't see it. The invitation here is not to become someone you're not. It's to recognize that emotional depth is something that can be practiced. Presence is a skill. Learning how to receive someone's quiet vulnerability without deflecting it, without rushing to fill it, without making it about you. These are learnable things. And a woman who is building these skills, even imperfectly, is going to be magnetic to a man who values emotional maturity, because she represents something extremely rare. A relationship where he can actually put down the weight. And here's the other side of this that I think is equally important. When a woman creates this kind of emotional safety after intimacy, consistently, it doesn't just make him feel good. It changes what he's willing to offer. Because high-value men, at their core, are usually givers. They want to build something. They want to show up for the right person. But they're also deeply protective of their energy and their inner world. Because they've learned, usually through experience, that not everyone deserves access to it. So when a woman proves herself trustworthy at the level of his emotional core, something shifts in him. He stops holding back. He starts thinking about the future in a different way. He becomes more present, more generous, more interested. Not because she manipulated him into it, but because she created a condition where it felt safe to be all the way in. This is the truth about what high-value men are actually looking for, and why the conversation about attraction and connection can't stay at the level of surface behavior. You can dress a certain way, carry yourself a certain way, play the game a certain way, and those things matter at certain stages. But the thing that makes a man with real options choose one woman and stay chosen is almost always this. She is a place where he can be real, where the armor can come off, where the quiet after intimacy doesn't feel like a gap to be managed, but a place to actually rest. If you've ever wondered why a relationship that seemed promising just kind of faded, or why a man who was clearly interested slowly became less available without any obvious event you could point to, I'd invite you to think about this. Think about what those quiet moments were like. Think about whether you were present or performing. Think about whether you were receiving him or waiting for your turn to speak. Not to blame yourself, but to get curious. Because the gap between where things are and where they could be is often not about compatibility or attraction or timing. It's about depth. And depth is something you can choose to go toward. So if you're in a relationship with a man who has real potential, or if you're hoping to build one, the work is not about getting better at the visible stuff. The work is about becoming someone who can hold space for another human being at their most unguarded. That is the thing that changes everything. That is what high-value men are seeking. And honestly, it's what all of us deserve to find. Thanks for watching. If this hit something real for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more conversations like this, real ones, not the surface level stuff, make sure you subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.